Welcome to the third episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling. As always, I'm the Ace of Tavern, Acefield Retro, live from No Cell Studios, and join with me as always, Colton, that Kentucky waterfall at Mullet.mania. What is up, dude?
What's going on, brother? Man, just reeling off that episode of Impact tonight. It was action packed.
Hell yeah, man! And we are getting used to our Thursdays here. This is our third episode. We've done the switch over from ROH, and I gotta say, man, if you're not watching Impact Wrestling, you're missing out because it is cohesive storytelling that leaves me entertained, man. It's nicely packed. Hour 40. You get in, get out if you're watching on YouTube. No commercials. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, guys, if you're looking for a way to watch Impact, they do offer the option to watch it via their YouTube channel. It is straight up $1 a month, and then whatever your local area is charging for tax. So yeah, I think I'm paying $1.05 a month to watch it starting at 8:30. And the best part of watching it on a 30-minute delay is no commercial breaks whatsoever. You get the whole show right there. It's an awesome way to view the product. And yeah, man, their Impact just gets better every week.
And that's kind of the complaint everyone's been having. I don't know where to find it. I can't find access. I have no idea how to consume it back when they were on Pop. But right now they're putting it right in front of you. And we've talked about it all the time. Exposure is the best. This is the best thing they can do, making it accessible for people to. It's a gateway drug for them to get people invested in their product. Because I think once you watch this, if you're a wrestling fan, there's no way you can look at this and not find something you like on the show between the work rate, the storytelling, and really the meaningful title matches we're seeing almost on every single week being built up.
Yeah, they've got something for literally every type of fan on every episode, and I got to be honest, I highly doubt that this $1 a month subscription on YouTube is gonna last forever. So jump on it while you can and get access to it. Yeah, pun intended, via YouTube instead of Access TV.
So next week we will be previewing Slammiversary. It will be our go home show. It will be Impact's go home show, and I'm pretty sure that is already taped, and they have that done from Atlanta, and all those things are done. So if you want, you can find the results, but do what we do. Wait and watch along and support Impact Wrestling. And we're going to be previewing the card. The show is going to look a little bit different as we run down, maybe do some predictions and maybe go long form about some of the matches. We will talk about it in the news segment, some new matches that were announced, but this will be our first time previewing, which is the biggest pay-per-view of the Impact calendar, and talking all things Slammiversary. So I'm looking forward to that next week, but we will, of course, break down every blow by blow, as we call it here, happening on the Impact on Access show. So like I said, tune in next week to get all your Slammiversary fix. And most importantly, tune in on July 15th to watch the show.
Yeah, they started really building towards Slammiversary card tonight. It's going to be one hell of a show. It's definitely not going to disappoint.
So that being said, let's get into our news segment here. We only have one piece of news to talk about, and it is talking about the new matches at Slammiversary. Let's get into the insight.
The insight.
All right, here we are. That's my favorite bumper in all the tavern. I love it. Gets me pumped up to talk about the news cycle here for Impact Wrestling. And dude, the card we were just talking about for Slammiversary was already jam-packed, but we already have another match announced on this show. We got the final card for it. We have what I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be on the pre-show, but it's been the Digital Media Championship with Joe Hendry and Kenny King. They've been going back and forth. This has been built up. And it also shows, in my opinion, the cohesion of storytelling, because they're putting a lot of emphasis even on a match that's going to live on the pre-show. It just shows what they're doing and what they're doing well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You and I had talked about how we were hoping this match was going to get solidified and made official for Slammiversary. I've loved what they've done with the storytelling to get us ready for this. You know, that we talked about how that was definitely my favorite part of the show last week, was that Stripper Kenny segment with Joe, and they added a little bit more to the development tonight, man. So yeah, very, very excited to see this match. I love both guys. I think Joe Hendry and Kenny King, both incredible in-ring talents. For a pre-show match, man, that's quite an opener.
So before we get into how this match came about, I got a question for you. Is the Digital Media Championship growing on you as far as name goes?
Yeah, it's definitely growing on me, man. And honestly, the belt itself is one of the best looking belts in the promotion, I think. Like, visually, it's a stunning belt. And, when I first heard it, I mean, I've been aware of the name for it for a few years now, and I've just kind of always not really been there for me, but it's growing on me. I'm coming around. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, Impact is such a champion of digital media. I mean, like we were saying when we started, I'm watching this via YouTube right now, which I cannot do, without a YouTube TV subscription, I cannot do for any other promotion. So it's pretty unique. And I think that, they definitely embody everything that is digital media. And yeah, they come by the name honestly. And I'm coming around on it.
So shout out to Tyson in the chat. Thank you so much for watching here. Tyson, big fan of the tavern. We love your support. Stay tuned for everything we have here. And we talked about this Kenny King match coming to fruition, and we saw Kenny King get into Hendry's business on Impact on Access, retorting with some specific style music videos to mock King and back and forth. And Kenny King is holding his own. We've talked about his in-ring work, but also the charisma that's coming out. And I think Joe Hendry's bringing out a different side of him. So I'm interested to see if they decide to make a switch. I don't think they're quite there yet. I think Joe Hendry's reign will continue, but I don't know if anyone's going to take the title. It might be Kenny King because it feels like they believe in him.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I mean, I think this will be probably Joe Hendry's most formidable opponent of recent memory. Kenny King's got a nice, he's got quite the resume, man. But I don't know. I don't think it's coming off Joe here. And, Kenny's perfect opportunity and definitely a formidable opponent, but his resume doesn't exactly need this belt at this time either. So I think this will be a really, really good opportunity to continue to build up Joe Hendry as eventually, I think, somebody that might be able to be in the world title.
100%. And I was also about to say about everyone talks about Orange Cassidy's reign as international champion, but if he successfully defends this title, Joe Hendry being that person, it would be his 14th successful defense of this digital media championship, very much in the same vein as a TV championship, well defended. He's on the show every single week. If it's in the ring or in a backstage segment, a music video, they're doing a good job of keeping him out there. And I think his star power belongs elsewhere, not on the pre-show. That might be a conversation for another time, but it just shows. I mean, they're putting a lot of emphasis on him, and you could put up this digital media reign against any reign that's happening right now. I mean, outside of the Roman verse that's going on, that kind of lives in its own way. But 14th title defense for the digital media championship says a lot about what they do with Joe Hendry and how they've been really emphasizing this title for the last couple of weeks.
Definitely. And honestly, man, I think the only reason that they're going to bill it as a pre-show match is just to keep it true to the name. And in fact, it is the digital media championship, and that it'll be available via digital media. You won't actually have to purchase the pay-per-view to get it. With it being that level of that level of a match, hopefully that'll do, be a nice enticing, selling, be a good buy point match for for people who are like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to buy it for the pay-per-view or not, and they're like, oh shit, this is the pre-show match. I'm definitely going to shell out the $20 to watch this, because it's definitely $20 well spent,
dude. 100%. And I didn't even think about it that way. It wouldn't make any sense for that title to be defended anywhere else but on digital media. So great call with that. We also had some other matches announced for after. This is how far Impact is looking out there, that a lot of times, and I would dare any promotion or any fan to go out and look at WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling that announce matches after their pay-per-view. Can you imagine we have an announcement on Raw after WrestleMania, before WrestleMania happened? It just doesn't happen. But on their end, I think they see this Dirty Dango feud and Santino as something that has been building up to a boil. Clearly, they have to have a match. I don't think they see it as a Slammiversary level match, which is fair. I think it's a nice sub feud, nice mid card, maybe lower than mid card. It's going to be taking place on Sunday. They're doing a whole bunch of tapings in the same area of Windsor. They're going to be taping the Impact tapings. I think 2 or 3 weeks will take place there, but we're getting that first announcement of Santino Marella versus Dirty Dango. And we'll talk about Dirty Dango and all his stuff. His promo tonight was awesome, but Marella has been the target of Dango right now because I think he represents everything that is sports entertainment with the Cobra and his lineage in WWE. And of course, Dirty Dango was there as well, but he doesn't want to remember that. It has been very, very interesting to see this being built up. And I was very, very impressed with the promo work on both sides. We talked about Santino's promo last week, but Dirty Dango kept up that energy again. He was popping me, man, talking about the old WCW stars. And man, it was an awesome, awesome promo. We'll get into that. But your thoughts on this being a match announced in advance?
I think that's cool, man. Like you said, that's not something we see from really any other promotion that I can think of. But I appreciate them doing it because they've done a great job of building this so far. And I think with Slammiversary being as stacked of a card as it is, there's really no reason to overstack that card. And I feel like this feud would probably kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit if we threw it on the Slammiversary card. So it's nice that they're making the announcement of, hey, you're going to have this incredible pay-per-view coming up a week from Saturday. But then we're gonna, you know, be sure you jump right back in with us next Thursday because you're gonna get the payoff for this.
And it gives people a reason to stick in town if you're traveling to Windsor, Ontario to go visit this. If you're a diehard Impact fan, gives you the reason to stay the extra day, possibly stay for a day of tapings. This is a match maybe that you're looking forward to see, and all your favorite stars will be there. You can check them out. But yeah, I think this is a good thing for them to do. And they're leaning into the taping model. And this is sort of the complaint we had on ROH's side where they were trying so bad to mask it and make it seem like it's not taped. Impact is leaning into it and using, center stage in Atlanta to their advantage in a lot of ways. And of course, we talk about the backstage area and how they utilize it tonight and all the vignette style tapings that they did for the backstage segments, but also too, they're doing things that's cost effective. They're understanding who they are as a promotion, not trying to be someone different. And I think it's working out in their favor, and they're really emphasizing their strengths and ignoring their weaknesses because they're hitting on all marks right now.
I completely agree, man. And you bring up a good point. I didn't even think about the fact that they would, you know, announce this as a way to kind of keep people in town and keep people coming back for the second day for the taping. That is one thing that, you know, when Impact has come through, my town, they've come through Louisville a couple times in the last couple of years. They always do 2 nights. So they'll do a night that is typically, a pay-per-view like they did Sacrifice here a couple years in a row. And then they would do another taping the following night. And it's honestly usually hard, with as much, we always talk about how good of a time it is to be a wrestling fan. There's so many shows running all the time. It is always kind of hard to get folks out to that Sunday taping when there's usually an AEW pay-per-view or a WWE pay-per-view that people are, planning on sticking at home for. So the fact that they're announcing matches up front is, I think, a good strategy to try to continue to get, butts in the crowd.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, that with Impact's doing is they're running markets they feel comfortable. And I think they've been very comfortable running this Canadian market. They've done a really good job of emphasizing that, and their fan base is kind of growing there. And we've seen them do really well overseas back in the day. Chad and I were talking about this on Wrestling Tonight, where they were kind of struggling here in the States, but thriving overseas in the UK, and they would run shows that be packed and energetic back in the day when Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle were there. Canada's kind of become their soft landing spot, a hometown for them. And there's a reason why they continue to run in these markets. And I think the crowd, like they said, they're doing buildings that fit what they're doing here. They're not trying to outshoot the amount of people to be there. It feels full. The atmosphere is there. And, go back to Rebellion when they had that pay-per-view. It felt, like the energy there was emphasized because they didn't try to sell out a bigger building than they were capable of. And that added to the aesthetic of the event. And I think the same is going to be said for Slammiversary here in Windsor. It's going to feel really, really good to have all fans that are passionate about the Impact product in-house, making noise, loving what they're doing in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing Impact does a really good job of is they really lean into where they're at, and they get comfortable with where they're at as a promotion. They don't try to go into a building that's too big for them. They don't try to, put the facade that it's not taped. Like you said, they're leaning into the fact that it's a tape product, and they're doing a great job of it.
Absolutely. And it feels like they really have a core fan base. If you look around some of the fans that are there, some familiar faces week after week, of course, it's in Atlanta and center stage. I'm sure people have maybe a season pass or however it works over there. And I'm sure it's not too expensive to get in there if you're in the area. But there's a lot of people that are passionate about the product. And it's becoming one of those worst kept secrets because I think people are starting to realize the consistent storytelling. Wrestling fans are sort of waking up and realizing like, this is not your uncle's Impact from 10 years ago. This is an Impact that's completely different. The roster stabilized. There's a lot of young talent, veterans. It's a great mix. And they're pushing storyline over the fact of trying to be something they're not. They're not WWE Light anymore. And if people want to make the memes and say, oh, I can't believe this guy showed up in the Impact Zone, you just haven't been watching. It shows you're not an informed wrestling fan because Impact is completely different. And they have reestablished themselves as almost a separate entity than what they used to be.
Oh man, yeah, I completely agree, and I think that they're unique. They are consistent, good storytelling product, and I mean, in my eyes, man, they are firmly the number 3 promotion in wrestling for me. I mean, at least for American wrestling. We'll take New Japan out of the equation here, but yeah, we talk about American wrestling, and between you've got the big dogs, WWE and AEW, but like you said, definitely not your uncle's Impact anymore. It's not TNA. It is its own thing, and they've come into their own, and they're really getting their footing and getting comfortable.
You've mentioned New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I thought this would be an interesting point to bring up because the Multiverse shows happen on August 20th at the old ECW Arena 2300 in Philly. has me thinking about the past where they originally had this relationship started. And if you go back a few years ago, I think everyone would look at it like, wow, this is just going to benefit Impact. New Japan Pro Wrestling is kind of being very uh, giving to the Impact roster. If you look at it now, 2023, I think the roles are reversed. I think 2020 was very hard on New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think we see that they're in a rebuilding phase. I don't think they have the same star power they used to have. And I think in a lot of ways, they're benefiting more from being around the Impact roster and getting the rub from them because there's more star power on this roster. I'll go to war for that point with anybody that this Impact roster is, to me, one of the best constructed rosters anywhere. Put it up against the New Japan Pro Wrestling roster. I think it blows it away. New Japan leans so hard on outside talent to come in to sell tickets, and I'm not hating on New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're in a rebuilding phase. They're not the place they were when Okada and Ibushi were stealing the show, or when it was Omega and Okada at the top of the card. That's not what New Japan Pro Wrestling is anymore. And they're benefiting from having Impact at the Multiverse show. And it used to be the other way around only a few years ago.
Well, and I think that just, speaks volumes to the way that New Japan has done business in the way that they have always been open to co-promoting and sharing talent. And, it's paying off here because, like you said, they are in a rebuilding phase. But I also think it goes and has gone both ways because, especially since, we're getting some New Japan pro wrestling content on Access TV coming on right after Impact. New Japan's got its own, diehards and it's got its own fan base. But for folks who are just really familiar with American wrestling, if you're watching Impact and you're seeing them plug and preview what's going to be on New Japan this week, it's coming on right after, man. I mean, that's getting eyes that wouldn't necessarily be there. So yeah, it wouldn't be there without that pitch. So it's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship, and glad to see it working well for both promotions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the future of the open door policy for all these promotions. Maybe they can, poke the big dog enough in WWE to get them to start doing business everywhere else, because it's nice to see AEW and New Japan doing business, Impact and AEW, of course, sharing some stuff. We've seen glimmers of hope. Go back to the Royal Rumble where Mickie James showed up at the Impact Women's Championship, or the Knockout Championship, I should say. It is one of those things where it's a work in progress, but I think if WWE starts to see the success of these promotions being able to work together collaboratively without having issues, maybe they decide to get involved, because that's when a true boom period will happen, when you're able to get the biggest stars in all wrestling in the same room, even if it's in a tag match. We saw that All Together Now show with all the Japanese promotions, with All Japan and Noah and New Japan Pro Wrestling, getting them all in a room. You may do a 6-man tag match, but just seeing, say, maybe even having Chris Bay and Ace Austin, and then you also have the Usos on the other side of the ring, and potentially having, the FTR, like just that dream scenario to me. It's more possible than it ever was, and it's because of things like this that we're seeing with Impact and AEW, New Japan, all looking to be progressive and work together. And hopefully we get someone in a seat that makes enough decisions in WWE that will eventually do it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge deal when Mickie James was not only able to, to come. She's a WWE alum, so her being at the Royal Rumble's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world, but the fact that they were, allowed her to bring the Knockouts title gold with her and put it on TV is absolutely unheard of. And yeah, it's just, promising that, we can dream that maybe one day we do get a wrestling supercard that you get WWE, AEW, New Japan, and Impact talent all on the same card. Man, that would be just fucking incredible. Would love to see it.
If one thing Shot of Nostalgia doing these research seasons have done for me, it's shown that wrestling has done this in the past and can do it. Even WWF at one time were doing 1994 Smoky Mountain Wrestling. They were very giving with their talent, having guys like Lex Luger show up in Marietta, Georgia, and having 1-2-3 Kid and IRS, and building up to WrestleMania 10. They had Smoky Mountain Wrestling roster at these Raw tapings. Like there's room and precedent set. I think the insecurity of the Monday Night War kind of ruined that for WWE. I think they feel a certain type of way about sharing talent and helping promotions build, but you can point to the ECW relationship that they had. I think eventually it will happen again. It might be when Vince is out of the seat completely, long gone. But, I just love what Impact's doing right now as far as setting precedent, showing that it can happen. And everyone can understand that the wrestling world is eating. There's a seat at the table for everybody. There's no reason for insecurity trying to put people out with underhanded tactics, because there's enough room for everybody here. Obviously, we're seeing 3 promotions and more thrive, and the independents are producing the best talent we've seen in decades right now. So, everybody's eating. Hopefully that continues to grow.
Yeah, 100%.
So before we move on to blow by blow, let's go run through the Slammiversary card quick. We're not going to go and do our predictions yet. Of course, we'll do that next week, but Main event again, Impact World Championship, Alex Shelley defending against Nick Aldis. The Knockouts Championship on the line, Deonna Purrazzo versus Trinity. We have that X Division Championship, Chris Sabin defending against Leo Rush. We have right now a 4-way tag team championship match. It might wind up being 5-way, but we have ABC, Chris Bay, and Ace Austin of the Bull Club defending against Sammy Callahan and Rich Swann, Brian Myers and Moose, and also Subculture. As we'll mention during the show, we'll talk about a team that wants to get involved here. Those Dirty Rascals are looking to get their hands in the tag title picture very soon. And I would be shocked if it doesn't actually happen just to get them on the card. But we also have the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, the Coven, Taylor Wilde and Kylan King defending against Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly, Steve Macklin and Bully Ray versus PCO and Scott D'Amore, with Darren McCarthy as special enforcer, former fighter in the NHL. If you guys are familiar with the Detroit Red Wings, this guy is every bit as a tough guy. It would be cool to see him get involved here. Ultimate X match for, I believe it's a number 1 contendership for the X Division Championship. They didn't say that, but I think it's assumed the Ultimate X. We got Mike Bailey, John Gresham, Angels, Kevin Knight, and Kushida right now. And of course, pre-show Digital Media Championship, Joe Hendry defending against Kenny King. Card stacked, dude.
Yeah, we can't fit any more on this card, man. This is going to be definitely a show to not miss, man. Yeah, 1 week from Saturday, July 15th, Slammiversary. You can watch it on Fight. It's going to be a killer show.
Which is why Dirty Dango and Santino has to wait until Sunday, because if you put them there, it wouldn't do justice to the feud they're building up. They deserve their own spotlight on a TV taping because they've had a decent build for them so far.
They definitely have, man. Really enjoyed the build for that feud.
Speaking of Dirty Dango, let's get into blow by blow and start with BTI and talk about the match that happened before the Impact.
Blow by blow.
All right, for the BTI, if you can't get enough Impact, they have about a half hour of content, some interviews and things like that, but they also have one match, and we had Dirty Dango taking on Crazy Steve. Dirty Dango getting the win here. This was mostly emphasizing this new angle, this new persona that Dirty Dango's taken on. It's anti-pro wrestling. Pretty good presentation for Dirty Dango. I think he has a great look. I saw him on the Independents a few months ago. He came through Victory Pro Wrestling. I always liked what he did. His WWE thing kind of put a glass ceiling on him, but I like what they're doing here, the anti-wrestling thing. I really enjoyed the promo he had tonight. This was a nice little entree into it, squashing Crazy Steve.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of what they're doing with Dango, man. I was not exactly the biggest fan of his presentation in WWE, so it's really cool to see him at this point in his career and seeing him, take a different angle. It's a really unique presentation for a heel to have someone, in the pro wrestling business, actively in the pro wrestling business, completely dogging and putting and dragging through the pro wrestling business.
So after this, he took the mic after squashing Crazy Steve. He was talking about Santino Marella, and he wants to end the charade of this Cobra gimmick. And he also said more things disparaging against pro wrestling. Santino then came out. He claimed that the Cobra was martial arts while listing several others that he trained in. Santino trying to be a little bit more serious than the comic act we usually see. And he said he's going to make Dango pay. And then we had Heath Slater running out. He hit the wake-up call on Dango to Santino's surprise. That set up. It looks like we're going to get Dango versus Heath Slater next week on the Go Home show. But yeah, here we are. So that was pretty much the opening segment. If you didn't see BTI, I think you kind of missed something as they're progressing some story here, not even on the Impact on Access main show.
Yeah, they're doing a good job at that the last few weeks. It's I like how they'll call back to it, a few matches into the card, but they really are doing some good development on BTI. And man, Santino Marella had one line in his promo to Dango that I thought was just absolutely incredible. He said he was going to serve him a piece of grapple pie topped with ass whip, not cool
so
whip,
good.
ass whip. Just incredible, man. The guy's a hell of a wordsmith.
Absolutely. And we open our main card here with a cold open with just action, dude. And I love this too, because so many times we get the announcers just welcome us to Impact, but there's other times where you just open up the show hot. And man, we got a great match to open the show. I think with the ending, and we'll get to that in a second, we're going to get more action between these two. Eddie Edwards with Alicia Edwards at his side, taking on Frankie Kazarian. If you want to lead us through this match, this was a hot opener. They gave this plenty of time. Crowd was into it. They started cold, but they couldn't help but chant, "This is awesome." They were very much into these guys, veterans of Impact. Man, they stole the show from the opening gate.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I mean, good setup for this. We knew we were getting this match this week after what went down, week before in with Kaz and Eddie Edwards teaming with each other. And of course, Eddie Edwards hitting Kazarian with that unintentional kick or intentional, who's to say? They were backstage kind of getting into it. They set this match up nicely. And yeah, this was a hell of an opening contest. Impact does a great job bringing the heat with the opening contest every single week, but this one especially, man. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this is not the final chapter. We will definitely be seeing more of these guys. Man, this might as well have been at some points a 2-on-1 handicap match with Alicia Edwards. She was immediately talking trash to Kaz when the bell rang and doing a great job of distracting Frankie. But this was pretty explosive all around, man. Early on, Alicia hits a tornado DDT on Frankie Kazarian when she jumps up on the apron with the referee's back turn. So Kazarian fires back, but Edwards rakes him in the eyes, hits him with some chops, some real old school dirty heel tactics from Eddie Edwards in this match, which was kind of cool to see. Something we haven't seen from him necessarily, anytime in recent memory. But Alicia just kept attacking Frankie. She hit him in the back. Always letting Edwards get the advantage. But after Eddie stole a kiss from Alicia, Frankie got a little offense in and hit a beautiful slingshot DDT, took Eddie Edwards' head straight into the apron. And Kazarian hit a springboard leg drop after that for a 2 count. Pretty close call there, but not enough to get a hold of it. Edwards went for the backpack stunner. Kazarian countered out of it. After a few more counters, Kaz hit an unprettier for a 2 count. Kazarian goes for the chicken wing. Edwards counters out of it. He hits a backstabber, and then Eddie Edwards hit a lariat before hitting a tiger driver. I thought it was totally over here at the tiger driver, man, but Frankie somehow found the strength to kick out of that.
Yeah, there was a few near falls. That was one of them. The unprettier for 2, the tiger driver for 2, and then also setting up for the Boston Knee Party. Originally, when Kazarian ducked, it looked like it was over again with the chicken wing. And as you mentioned, Alicia Edwards getting involved. I literally stood up and I quoted JR. Like, if JR was here announcing this, he'd be like, that goddamn Jezebel getting involved again. Because literally, she would not be stopped. And the referee, poor ref, took one of those ref bumps and he looked like he was dead from that splash in the corner. But he did a good job of selling it. And once he went down, you knew it was happening. As a wrestling fan, we've been watching wrestling long enough to know she was getting back in there and finishing the job, because she was a thorn in Kazarian's side the whole night, which set the stage for eventually in Slammiversary, as you'll talk about. But, I thought it was a really well done thing where you couldn't help but get angry because, I'm not that invested in Frank Kazarian, the face. I'm really not. But I was just pissed off because I just want to see these two, because once they were finally finding cohesion, going back and forth with some chain wrestling and some sequences, she would be thorn in their side. And I felt like it was beautifully done, because it almost was, stunting the momentum of the match in a good way, because it was like, all right, what is it going to be like when she's not involved, where these guys get all the time in the world? And that's what I'm looking forward to at Slammiversary.
And hats off to Alicia, man, and her, skill level and the ability to do this so seamlessly, because we really needed this, because really we didn't have a face or a heel assignment between these guys going into this match. It's just 2 veterans who can 100% go, who've got some beef with each other. So I thought this was incredible story development. Eddie Edwards gets the win here. No way in hell you can call it a clean or honorable win. Like I said,
No
it might as well be a 2-on-1 handicap match with as much interference as we had from Alicia here. But yeah, great match, man. Really, really good way to open it, and sets us up well for another chapter between these guys.
Yeah, so with that kendo stick to the back, hit that Boston Knee Party, his version of the Shining Wizard. Big dude to do a Shining Wizard, hit that knee right in the face. And him and Kazarian, you could tell they're used to working together. They mentioned that they teamed for the first time in Impact, but I'm sure, the announcer, Tom Hannafin, I don't think was completely sure they haven't teamed up, and they've been in the business a long time. It's possible they teamed up in other promotions, independents, elsewhere, but you can just tell these dudes are familiar together. They've been on the same roster for a very long time. And the other thing I thought about too with Kazarian, when would he have gotten 11, 12 minutes ever on an AEW show to do his thing here, outside of the beginning in SCU days where he was the tag champs? I mean, you haven't seen this. And I think, again, continues to emphasize he made the right choice by staying with Impact and deciding to finish up his career here, because he's a veteran. How much more longer does he have? It's nice to see him getting the time to really kind of spread it out a little bit. And him and Eddie Edwards got a lot of freedom that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, outside after the SCU run, the answer is never. He never would have gotten 12 minutes anywhere on AWTV. So, yeah, I thought this was great, man. I mean, the last 3 weeks we've seen something from Kazarian and Edwards, and I'm here for it. I'm really enjoying where this program's going.
So we got a quick promo from Chris Sabin talking about the Leo Rush attack, hyping up that he's the X Division champion. Pretty standard stuff here. And then we also got Leo Rush at the side here doing a little interview as well. And he was doing the same thing, hyping up, saying that he hasn't come to Impact to make friends. He's interrupted by his tag partner later in the night, Nick Aldis. They go back and forth. And Aldis just makes it clear. I don't care if you don't want to make friends, just don't get in my way. So setting up the stage. And this was cool too, because it set the stage for later in the night. Sometimes we see in the beginning of the show, this was kind of sandwiched in between the segments of the first and second match. Thought it was well done, establishing Leo Rush is on the same level as Nick Aldis. I think that's the important part. Obviously, everyone's familiar with Leo Rush and what he's done, and the announce team, when he's in the ring, they're referencing his time in WWE. They're referencing his time in New Japan Pro Wrestling as one of the best junior heavyweights, and also mentioning, being Bobby Lashley's right-hand man kind of thing. They have done a really good job of making Leo Rush immediately feel like he's on a world champion level. And I mean, he's one of the best workers I've seen in a very long time. And that's saying a lot. Fast paced beyond belief. And promo needs a little work, but didn't really get enough time here. So the interaction with Team Aldis and Leo was a little bit segmented. I'm curious to see what he's going to do long form with the microphone.
Yeah, man, same here. I mean, the guy's got to be the fastest dude in the squared circle in any promotion. And he had an incredible, explosive, introduction to Impact last week. I like this exchange between him and Nick Aldis. Kind of a unlikely bedfellows, pairing them together. But I thought they did a good job of, just between having, them in the ring together last week, beating down on the Motor City Machine Guns to where we got with here. I thought they did a great job setting it up with, what little time we'd given it. So, but after this going in, we get a promo from Frankie backstage talking about Eddie's win over him. He talks about how Eddie cheated and how he definitely didn't get this win with honor. But these are both guys that were trained by Killer Kowalski, and Kaz, congratulates Eddie, and he said one thing Kowalski taught him was to not complain, but to get even, and sets up this match between the two of them for Slammiversary. So another Slammiversary match on the card. Excited to see it, man. I think it's going to be a great one.
Yeah, and even in the odds, he's bringing his wife with him. Tracy Brooks is going to be at his side to make sure that Alicia Edwards is not going to be involved. Of course, Tracy Brooks has Impact lineage as well. So, that's nice tie-in here. I think we're finally going to get the two of them in the ring without involvement. We're going to get them brawling on the outside inevitably. So hopefully if we get even, a little bit more time and half the match that we got on this opening show, I think it'll be a crowd pleaser in Windsor. They're going to be hot for this match, and it sets the stage. It wouldn't shock me to see this match get 15 minutes if these guys want it, because they did such a good job of really telling a story in an abbreviated fashion. If you give them like 3 or 4 more minutes, they could really steal the show.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, this match I think will fit anywhere on the card very well.
So we go into our next match here, and it's pretty much another squash match here. Rich Swann and Sami Callihan. This was just to emphasize them going into this tag match, and it was mostly to establish them. They are not a team we're really usually familiar with. We have two guys that are former Impact World Champions, guys that are usually at the top of the card. They're together here, but they really emphasize the teamwork here. They, as much as we see some other teams like Edwards and Kazarian not working well together, Rich Swann and Sami Callihan quickly have taken to each other where they are doing double team moves. They're doing stuff we haven't seen. And the ending saw that Cactus Pile Driver doubled up with a kick to the head at the same time. Was awesome. Champagne Singh and Shira had no chance in this match. But of course, Rich Swann and Sami Callihan, it wasn't about the match. It was about showing that they are a cohesive unit going into Slammiversary. Thought they did the job.
Yeah, man. Total squash. There was not much time spent where it wasn't both Rich Swann and Sami Callihan in the ring at the same time. But that Cactus Pile Driver was a sweet setup. Shout out to Shira, former Ohio Valley Wrestling heavyweight champion. Got to see that guy in person here in Louisville a couple of times. great talent. Guy's got a great look. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see, like you said, both former heavyweight champions. Cool pairing to see them together, man. And I'm excited to see more tag action from these guys, because it already looks like they've been doing it together for years. Some really, really good teamwork and tandem offense coming from these two.
Yeah, and as we compare it more and more to watching AEW, if you look at the example of Rich Swann, is not too long ago, he was the world champion. Sami Callihan was at the top of the card as well. A lot of times what AEW does, or even WWE, they don't know what to do with these guys at the top of the roster, and they kind of let them dwindle. Seeing Rich Swann and Sami Callihan have some meaningful story, instead of sitting idly waiting for their chance again in the main event, is nice to see. And seeing, I'm thinking about like Hangman Page, or when he lost the title, he went missing for a while. Same thing with Kenny Omega. Of course, Kenny was hurt, but that always happens,
Yeah, and it keeps these guys getting reps and keeps them working week to week. And, it's nice to see them on our TV still, even if it is in a different capacity.
So we have Moose and Myers backstage with Gia Miller, and they're talking about their match. And Myers really showing that charisma, man. Him and Moose are an unlikely pairing, but I think they do a good job of selling it. And Gia kind of sowing some seeds of doubt for Brian Myers.
Yeah, man, most definitely. This was I really enjoy the team of Myers and Moose together. Moose came back last week and told Myers that he needed to ditch the good hands, which they did. But she really got in Moose's head there. Gia did, and sent him off kind of in a tizzy. So it's not all roses between Moose and Myers going into this 4-way at Slammiversary.
Which was a cool dichotomy comparing to the Rich Swann and Sami Callihan, where you both have kind of a similar situation where both teams are not familiar, as well as obviously ABC is, where these guys can, they might as well be brothers. Same thing on the Motor City Machine Guns and other well-oiled machines. Watching Moose and Myers kind of struggle here, and Myers is so badly wanting Moose's approval. It was very well done, especially following this Rich Swann and Sami Callihan squash match, where they may not be as on the same page. So it's all these different teams coming in for a gumbo of a mixed bag, as we have here.
Most definitely.
So we have the Dango promo I was referencing before, and this was a vignette taped, looked like it was outside of an abandoned building. Dirty Dango popped me too, where he said he hasn't watched wrestling since 1998 when it was cool. He was blurring the line a little bit here, where he was kind of shooting, in his own words, on just these like younger wrestlers, and don't be doing high spots. And he said, the construction of the wall behind him was more interesting than wrestling itself. He actually pointed out a dude on a bike, saying he has more charisma than half the roster. Then he was kind of taking target on Santino and also Heath, saying that they are not anywhere close to as talented as he is. He's moved on. He's grown since his days in WWE, but these guys haven't. They're leaning on, the ghosts of the past. Thought this was well done. And I don't think this character of Dango is fully realized yet, but I'm seeing the potential here that it could really have legs. And in other fashions, maybe it's something that can kind of catch fire here and give Dirty Dango a little bit of a persona, instead of doing just the legacy act of just being Fandango with a different name, because this is a nice, interesting twist to his character.
Yeah, man, I like this kind of chip on his shoulder Dango that we're getting here. And this is second week in a row where we've gotten a vignette from him, just kind of on a different off-site, talking, shooting on the wrestling business. And I love the fact that he, with a straight face, suggested that Heath should look into either being a forklift driver at Home Depot, or a carnival ride operator, or maybe even a forklift driver at Lowe's. Not sure where the Home Depot or Lowe's rank in Dango's tier of big box stores. Not sure which one was the bigger dig at Heath, but
right.
But yeah, I absolutely love this promo, man. This is it's definitely got legs, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Again, shows how well Impact is telling stories. This is a feud that has no stakes aside from just bad blood between two guys that used to be in WWE together, and they're doing a good job of telling stories in short vignettes and also in short bursts on TV, sometimes before the actual Impact and Access show is even taking place. So doing a really good job of making people care, and it just shows Impact's really kind of hitting on all numbers here, by getting us to care about a Dango Santino match where we shouldn't care, but we do, which is, I guess, all kudos to them.
And building it enough to where they can make the announcement that it's going to be happening after the pay-per-view, and we're already invested.
100%. And we have a match here that's previewing a match on Slammiversary. It's two guys taking place in this, this X Division match that we had being built up here, the Ultimate X John Gresham and Angels with the design. And there's been some other story that's been being built here. The match itself was quick. John Gresham and Angels are both very dynamic competitors. John Gresham, I say it time and time again, missed opportunity for AEW. I know things didn't go well on the ROH side. I know it might have been self-imposed destruction on his end by kind of igniting controversy with Tony Khan by not communicating the right way. And John Gresham has come out of the news and said how he handled it poorly. Maybe we get a future reunion between the two sides with John Gresham come back to AEW or ROH in some capacity. But man, seeing these two in this ring and some of the spots here where they do with teasing the suplexes and, some of the strongman stuff, John Gresham is a once in a lifetime athlete. Angels too, a guy who was just like a crony in the Dark Order here, is doing things on here that he looks like he's kind of coming to his own here in Impact. But John Gresham gets the win. But I'll let you take the lead with the story that happened after with the design, because that's where the real story happened.
Yeah, man. And we've been seeing the cracks in the design early as last week, and it started before the match even got started tonight, man. You got Diener barking orders at Angels before he even gets in the ring. And, it's just not – it's obvious that Angels isn't buying what Diener is selling by any means. And, at the end of the match, Gresham offered a handshake. Diener told Angels not to do it. And Angels just looked at Diener and said, look, I decide what I do, shoved Diener out of the way, and basically told him that he doesn't need him anymore. And Angels shook Gresham's hand. Diener explodes into the ring, tries to tell Khan to attack Angels, and Khan's kind of playing peacekeeper here. So yeah, it looks like that Angels is making. I mean, I took this as Angels is making his exit from the design tonight.
Absolutely.
Going forward.
I think he's done. I think because he shook the hand of Gresham, and Gresham was like, I'm not involved, but I guess I'm part of it now. So he kind of walked away with his hands up.
Yeah. So interesting to see where this will go. I mean, I wonder, is Diener going to be looking to add another member? How long is Khan? I mean, obviously, Khan wasn't as explicit about not following his directions, but I mean, he didn't do what he said either, man. I mean, he was playing peacekeeper, but he's still, supposed to be a subordinate and not following orders. So yeah, it's obvious that Diener has no control. Doesn't necessarily have the pull that old Eric Young had back in the Violent by Design days by any means.
Absolutely. And John Gresham also still abiding by the code of honor. And I think it's like apropos that we're here. John Gresham doing the bridging of the gap for us as we head on over to Impact. He's there now, and he's still trying to shake people's hands. He's just like, dude, shake my hand after the match. It's the code of honor. He's ROH through and through.
Yeah, a class act, man.
So we have ABC backstage, and this is the segment we were talking about before. They were talking about how the defending the tag titles. I thought they did a really good job of how they shot the promo with the camera on top of them tight. Titles looking beautiful on their shoulders. Wearing the nice merch. They got the Bullet Club jackets on. They look like champions. And then we get Trey Miguel and also one half the Rascal, Zachary. What's Zachary's last name?
Wentz.
Zachary Wentz shows up right next to him, and they challenge him to a title match. And they're like, ABC is saying, you guys can't cut the line. This is Leo Rush cut the line. If we're looking at how kayfabe works, they did address it. We'll talk about that in a second. But they made it clear you can't jump the line. The line starts out the door, go outside and wait for your turn. But then Trey Miguel, as he's sitting there munching on food and drinking stuff, which I guess is his thing now, which is kind of getting over, where he's just very passive and pulls out a Gatorade. He's sipping on it. He said, if I could beat you, why don't you just add us to the match? So we're going to get Trey Miguel versus Chris Bay next week on Impact on Access. I think foregone conclusion, we're going to get the Rascals in this match. And man, I think the long-term feud is ABC versus the Rascals, because I think there's a lot to be told here. And that, take my money, dude. ABC versus the Rascals, that would kill it.
Yeah, man. I'm putting the Rascals and even if the Rascals added and this becomes a 5-way, I mean, we might need a bigger ring, but it's going to be an incredible match. And I think I took it as this was going to be Wentz versus Chris Bay next week. Is it Trey Miguel? Or is it going to be Wentz versus him?
I thought it was Trey Miguel, but it's very possible it could be, because I think it was Trey Miguel got involved after. It could be Wentz. You're right, though. I do remember him doing most of the talking, but
I think it is going to be Wentz, mainly just because this will be Wentz's first official match in Impact in 3 years since he just showed back up. So that would make sense that we would get a singles match out of him to be the deciding factor on whether or not they're getting added to this or not.
Oh, good catch. So we get Zachary Wentz versus Chris Bay. Either way, I think the Rascals are being added to this title match. I think that's the main story here. And I don't know if they knew the Rascals would be reunited. Maybe they got Zachary Wentz very, very recently. But the main story here is like you have these hodgepodge teams together, but then you're going to have these two well-oiled machines with ABC and also the Rascals getting involved. And they're really emphasizing Sammy Callahan and Rich Swann have some cohesion. There we could be in for an explosive night for tag wrestling, 5-way tag match. Like you said, we might need a bigger ring.
Yeah, man, as if it wasn't already going to be a hell of a show and a hell of a match with 4 teams. I'm excited to see this match next week. I haven't seen a whole lot of Zachary Wentz's work myself personally, so I'm excited. Chris Bay's an incredible hand. This will be a good match.
Well, I know most of the stuff I've seen from Zachary Wentz is on the NXT side. I know he was released for pictures or whatever from the past, and he spent some time rehabilitating his image and all that stuff from that. So here he is getting another shot here with the Rascals, and well deserved. The dude is a in-ring competitor that has done all the right things. I think someone had dug up social media stuff on him, and I don't know the specifics. I remember him getting released from NXT because of something that went down from social media, someone doing deep digs of like an old tweet or something, an old Instagram post. But nevertheless, here he is, and hopefully they can just move past it and have his in-ring work speak for the person he is.
Yeah, 100%, man. This should be a good one. Looking forward to it next week.
So we have PCO in the back, and he's getting ready for this match against the Good Hands by electrocuting himself. And this was a little appetizer, wetting our whistle for later in the night, because if you thought this was wild, wait till after this PCO match with the Good Hands, because goddamn. But PCO, they're really leaning into this Frankenstein thing, and they're like hitting it right on the nose. He used to be this like hypothetical Frankenstein in Impact Wrestling. Now he is literally Frankenstein. They have the face paint and everything.
Yeah, he actually came out with like green skin tones on him tonight, man. Yeah, the French Canadian Frankenstein is a incredible gimmick, man, and nobody could pull it off like PCO. And yeah, this was we knew this was going to be probably a pretty quick match. 2-on-1 handicap between the Good Hands and PCO. We got Scott D'Amore coming out to join Ray Walton Hannafin on commentary here, and the Good Hands kind of came out and got on the mic and kind of drug Scott through the mud for not accepting their challenge to fight him, and then also took some shots at PCO, saying that he is detached from reality. And as soon as they got in, PCO took him to school, man. I was actually surprised by the lack of offense that the Good Hands got in here. But as you said, this was not about the match. This is about what happened after the match.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had PCO obviously getting the win here. And here we go with this stuff after, with Hotch attacking Scott D'Amore after the bell. D'Amore responded with a pop-up sit-down powerbomb, similar to the Sky High that D'Lo used to do. They set up for this Canadian Destroyer, which I think is going to be the big spot at Slammiversary. They're going to have him hit that on either Bully Ray. Maybe they'll do it on Macklin because it probably makes more sense. Macklin has a little bit more hop on him, so we'll see what happens.
Be cool to see it on Bully Ray.
Yeah, maybe we'll see it. But Bully Ray comes out here to interrupt it. He's pretty much mouthing, yeah, you're going to do the Destroyer? Do the Destroyer on me. Do the Destroyer on me. Macklin came through the crowd, low blowed PCO, and then we're off to the races where they're just beating the shit out of everybody. Scott D'Amore gets handcuffed to the ropes, which is a unique twist because you would think they want to isolate D'Amore and keep PCO isolated. They went the opposite route where they targeted PCO. And this main thing, blurring the line of reality, where we all know he's not really a Frankenstein, not really a monster. Bully Ray taking that approach and saying, he's a man. I'm going to prove he's a man by beating him down into oblivion while Scott D'Amore is handcuffed. They just take the task, and they're teasing D'Amore with the chair shots, and they're not actually hitting D'Amore to a point where Scott D'Amore is left in the ring, and they drag him through center stage. And the camera work is so beautiful here, where they toss him through, and then they kind of take a different angle, which looks more like a voyeur cam, Blair Witch Project style, where they're like facing in like you're not supposed to be watching what you're watching. And then that's when the wild stuff happens, where they have PCO down. They take what looks to be a car battery, flip it upside down, liquid goes into his mouth while Bully Ray has his chair on his throat, and then go all the way through where now he has the battery acid in his mouth, and they literally put lighter fluid on his back, light him on fire, and Bully Ray talking shit this whole time. And then the segment ends with PCO running towards the camera, and then the screen goes black. This was crazy. This was the most Impact shit ever. And it fits their aesthetic. This is what we mean by the cinematic type of stuff. Talk about how wild the Broken Universe was. This is something that could live there, but it also yes, it's ridiculous. Yes, it's crazy, but it made sense. And if that kind of fits the aesthetic of the match, because PCO is Frankenstein, Bully Ray's trying to prove that he's not.
Exactly, man. And like, you talk about the cohesiveness of it. That's the car battery that PCO was using to zap
Right.
himself with the cables prior to the segment prior before the match. They grabbed the same battery, pour the acid down his throat. PCO's foaming at the fucking mouth, man, from this battery. Like, it's not just like, oh, let's who knows what this liquid really is. Like, I mean, yeah, I know they didn't really pour acid down his throat because he'd be dead. But I mean, the fact that whatever it was caused some sort of foam to come out of his mouth and look like there was an actual chemical reaction happening was just such a nice subtle touch, man. And the fact, yeah, Bully Ray with just 2 bottles of lighter fluid, one in each hand, just spraying figure eights all over the back of PCO and then lighting him on fire, telling him to literally go to hell, man, to burn in hell, was just chef's kiss. Incredible.
Yeah, this match has a lot of heat on it for a tag match, but literally no stakes. This is just what a tag match that's a blood feud at this point. And again, this is one of the highlights of the show. This is what a lot of Slammiversary is built around. No titles, just a blood feud, good old fashioned wrestling. This is, what wrestling's foundation wise, morality play, as you talked about.
Well, and it sets up too questions for next week. Like, is PCO going to be able to bounce back? Is he really truly this French Canadian Frankenstein monster that he says he is? Will he be in shape to compete at Slammiversary, or is Scott D'Amore going to have to find another partner? So yeah, just a lot of good questions going into next week with this program.
And Steve Macklin's another example of a guy who just lost the world title, easily to kind of fall into the fold and not have anything to do. He jumps right into another main program here and kept very busy and put a spotlight on him where he's not forgotten about. And I think a lot of promotions can learn from that when a guy gets taken out of the main event, loses the title, and they don't know what to do with this guy because he's a top guy but not competing for the title. This is an example of it where you can keep the emphasis on him by putting a main story that, dude, it involves a guy who is a 35-year plus veteran. Like, what is he, 60 something years old? Very, he's been in the business. And Scott D'Amore, who is at this point a non-active wrestler. And the story is juicy. There's a lot of meat on the bone, which is, again, we don't want to wax poetic and speak in hyperbole about Impact, but beautifully done. And the ridiculousness is done it's not overkill. It really just makes the story even better. And I thought it was really well done. It was so ridiculous, but it was the way it was filmed. It's everything Impact, everything that is good about Impact, where if you look at the Bray Wyatt stuff on WWE side, it's so overproduced. This was the opposite of that, where again, looked like it was filmed on, in someone's college class of a horror film. But it was in a good way. I mean that in the best type of film festival like thing.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Because you see him throwing him down this like service ramp, and then them closing the doors behind him, and then it's obvious that the camera person that gets the stuff that goes down in the parking garage is like running from another location to catch up with them. Like, this is all happening in real time, totally spontaneous. It's just the perfect amount of produced is what this was.
Yeah, and then this also too. Got to remember this is taped, so they're probably taped this segment on 2 different days. That the live crowd's not experiencing what's happening in the back. They just close the doors and they take the time to produce these segments outside. We see it all the time. Some of these promos that are done, but a segment like this, that's the benefit of the tape segment, that you don't have to do it one take on the fly. They're able to, and hopefully it was just one take, that he was only able to light on fire once with that jacket on. But point being is they have an opportunity to make it look better than it has to be or could be if it was live. And that's the benefit of doing tape. And that's what Impact does. They're leaning into who they are. Yes, it's tape, but let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, man. Excellent work.
So we go into our next match here, and Giselle Shaw, fresh off her loss at the Down Under tour, with Jay Vidal and Savannah Evans in her corner, defeated Courtney Rush with Jessica. Courtney Rush, this is a nice need change for character. We saw that whole thing with her 2 weeks ago, our first episode, where they're doing something completely different now. She played a great role of a babyface. We're not used to seeing her in that role. That was a solid performance, and this was them pretty much showing off the depth of their women's division. And I think also trying to get Giselle Shaw back up to the level she was prior to losing in, pretty definitive fashion at the Down Under tour. Like we were talking about here that we potentially thought at Slammiversary we'd have that triple threat for the Knockouts Championship. Wasn't to be. Giselle Shaw, I think now it's kind of a rehabilitation phase. They want to get her back to that level. And Not that she needs to be. I think following this Trinity Deonna Purrazzo match, maybe she's next in line for whoever walks out of the title. But I thought this was a good showing for both girls here. And again, a lot of the women's divisions and other promotions can learn from this. This was really good.
Yeah, man. I thought it did just that. I thought it made Giselle look strong, kind of built her back up, but at the same time, not at the expense of entirely squashing Courtney Rush. I thought it was cool to see Courtney Rush here in a babyface presentation, which we've never really seen before. It was a quick match, good match, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
So we didn't really touch upon the Down Under stuff, and that's for good reason. Not really eventful. I did talk about it at length on Wrestling Tonight. So if you're looking for my takes on the Down Under stuff, Chad and I did speak about it. But I mean, I'll ask you about the Down Under stuff outside of just exposure for Australia, new market. Do you think Impact kind of accomplished what they were looking for with that tour, or were you looking for more of like a buzzworthy news coming out of the show?
I think that they got what they needed to get done over there. And I think, for the most part, I mean, we talked at length about, how we thought it was cool that they set it up like there could potentially be some title changes, but I don't think that it was necessary by any means. I just think it's great that they got over there. I did not get to see what it looked like for ticket sales over there. I didn't get to see any numbers, so I'm hoping that the houses were good, because they definitely, even though there weren't any major upsets or any titles changing hands, there was definitely some good matches that were brought over for the Australian fans.
It was an Impact crowd for sure. The first night didn't do as well as the second night, but it did have a very intimate feel. And not in a bad way. They did a good job of lighting it to make it feel like there was more people there than there probably were. And from what I understand, it was a tough place to run and a tough place to get people to go to in Wagga Wagga. This wasn't like a hotbed. So they're doing their best to kind of tap into a market that really hasn't been tapped and setting the stage for future returns there. But I think they did a good job of, we didn't mention it before, the package they showed where they did some media tour. They went to school and they were talking about anti-bullying and mental health and all of that. And then them spending time at the zoo. If anything, the promotional material coming out of the show was a good piece of it, saying that check in a box, you've been able to go to that country, have a wrestling show there, be successful and make a name for yourself, walk away with some new fans. And if anything, it did its job. I agree with you. And you didn't really have to walk away being like, oh, wow, Steve Macklin won the title back. We'd be sitting in the same place right now, just probably worse off, because the Slammiversary card is more important than what they were doing in the ring and Down Under.
Yeah, I think if we were a little bit further away from Slammiversary with this tour, maybe they would have been a little bit more inclined to do, something bigger like that. But yeah, I think it would have just muddied the waters if they had done any title changes this close to the big, like you said, the biggest card of the year for Impact.
So going before this main event, we had a Kenny King and Sheldon Jean backstage segment. We had a fan walk up to Kenny King asking for a picture, and the fan was trying to give him some money because Joe Hendry's song exposed Kenny King's time as a dancer. So they did the whole stripper gimmick here, and another person tried the same, and Kenny King is just like, dude, I'm fed up with this. And King said to him, don't you dare say his name. And there he is, Joe Hendry showing up. Comic relief, but it's also done such a beautiful way where Joe Hendry feels like he's the thorn in Kenny King's side that I thought they did a good job of emphasizing. Like, he's the defending champion, but he's also getting under the skin of Kenny King when it should be the other way around.
Yeah, man. It really shows that Hendry is 100% in control of this. 3 weeks back now, Kenny King came out to the ring and watched a Joe Hendry match, and then walked into the ring and handed Joe his title. So Kenny started all this. Kenny brought this on himself, which is my favorite part about it. And then Joe is making sure that he's 100% in the driver's seat for this feud. I thought it was great that not only did that fan try to give him money, she pulled his shirt up and tried to put it in his fucking waistband. It was just this. I mean, and this is, it's a mid-card title. It's a mid-card story. But it is one of my favorite stories that the promotion has to offer right now, man. They are just killing it with this every single week. And like you said, they added this match for the pre-show next Saturday for Slammiversary. Super excited for this one.
Don't want to forget the Yui Uemura thing that they added as well, with that version of the song where, God, popped me so much. It was so awesome to see Uemura being used in this way. Joe Hendry's just perfect character and getting the most out of everybody on screen. But Loved it so much, and I can't say enough good things about it. As we say, what's up to J-Bone here? Thanks for watching, brother. Kenny King is Tough Enough alum. I did not actually know that. So Kenny King, overcoming the stigma of being a tough enough guy, but doing good things in Impact.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So let's lead into the main event here. We have a preview of our two main matches here at Slammiversary. Of course, Lio Rush will get an X Division Championship shot against Chris Sabin in Slammiversary. Nick Aldis will be challenging for the Impact World Championship against Alex Shelley, and they're both on opposite sides of the ring. So we mentioned strange bedfellows. Lio Rush and Nick Aldis are not a team that's used to teaming together. In fact, this is their first time teaming together at all. We saw that segment setting the stage for them. They don't really want to be friends. They're not trying to be friends, but they have a common enemy of the Motor City Machine Guns. And this match, man, they gave it a lot of time. When this came on, what was it, like 9:35? So
right at 9, yeah, just north of 9:40.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of time, and you knew we were going to let this match breathe, which was nice because I think these guys in the ring, I mean, look at all the four men in here. Work rate central, where these guys had some time to let it breathe, different styles. We mentioned Lio Rush going in there. Him running the ropes is the most impressive thing. I know that sounds silly, but him able to pivot on a dime and just turn around and be able to keep up. And man, him and Sabin were setting the stage potentially for what is going to be a barn buster of a match with, just the pace alone, Sabin keeping up. And I'm looking forward to all of that. And this did a good job of making people excited to see both combinations, but seeing them mix it up was awesome in this tag match.
Well, yeah, man, 100%. I mean, just the sheer speed of Lio Rush running the ropes is super impressive. I love this match, man. And I was so happy to see that they gave it this much time because, Nick Aldis, like we mentioned earlier in the promo that he had backstage with Lio, made it clear that he was not willing to take a loss here no matter what, that, they weren't friends. All they had to do is work together, but that losing, was not an option. Great storytelling in this match. Early on, Motor City Machine Guns do a great job of cutting the ring in half, not letting Aldis get in a tag, and just beautiful tandem offense and really taking it to Lio. But man, yeah, this match was awesome, man. It was not the finish that I expected, but I absolutely loved the finish. So, we get, Aldis gets in there and he does get a good run on both guys, on both Sabin and Alex Shelley. And, we get Lio Rush getting the pin here while Aldis is holding Alex Shelley from trying to get in and break up the pin. Didn't see it coming. I figured Motor City Machine Guns were going to go over here, and we were maybe going to see a little bit of a rift between Aldis and Lio Rush for the go-home show, maybe a one-on-one match. But no, I really liked seeing Aldis and Lio Rush get the win here, man. It was, really great main event. The Impact main events never disappoint.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like a main event. And I think a big piece of their motive here, it was to make Lio Rush feel on par with all the three guys in the ring. And think about that. He just debuted not too long ago here. And everyone's familiar with him. Of course, the New Japan Pro Wrestling work, his WWE side of things. Everyone's familiar with who he is. But as far as the Impact universe goes, he's jumping the line to get an X Division Championship shot. Him mixing up with these three guys was important to set the stage that he's on their level. And I think they did a great job of that, not only keeping pace with both Shelley and Sabin when he had chances to dance with him in the ring, but on top of that, getting the pinfall over Chris Sabin going into Slammiversary says a lot. That he can say, not only am I jumping the line, but I proved I can pin the champion, so I'm justified in getting my shot. Thought it was good storytelling. Better than that, great work rate, and making me very excited for the two top of the card matches with his X Division title and the world champion. At the same time, too, makes the X Division Championship feel really important because it's mixing up with the world title, and that's just getting the rub and making it feel super special going to Slammiversary. It's a win-win situation with the Motor City Machine Guns holding both belts.
Yeah, man, this was just beautiful continuous build of Lio Rush. Like you said, he only debuted in Impact last week, and I first thought when we were starting to see the writing on the wall last week that he wants a shot at the X Division title. I was like, I know Lio Rush is talented, but that seems a little quick. And tonight's match proved that they can build to this in a 2 to 3 week time. And that just shows the level of developed storytelling ability that Impact Wrestling has, man, because I mean, they just knocked it out of the park with this. An incredible main event. Excited to see the fallout from this for the go home show, and so excited for both the X Division and the world title match coming up at Slammiversary. It's going to be, I mean, I know we're going to headline the show with the world title match because that's what you do. But honestly, the way they set this up between Chris Sabin and Leo Rush tonight, either one of these matches could headline Slammiversary, and I'd be happy.
Absolutely. So we have some matches set for the go home show here. And you mentioned before, it's not going to be Trey Miguel. It's going to be Zachary Wentz versus Chris Bay with the Slammiversary tag team title opportunity on the line. We're going to get Kevin Knight versus Mike Bailey, who haven't seen Mike Bailey in a little bit here. Feels like we missed him a little bit. I think we saw him 2 weeks ago. And we're going to have Moose and Brian Myers getting a warm-up match against Rich Swann and Sami Callihan. And we have a Deonna Purrazzo open challenge. So I'm sure we're going to get more things involved here. Of course, more Leo Rush stuff, more Nick Aldis stuff. I'm interested to see how they interact fresh off their win in this tag match main event. Have there been tensions smooth over? Do they feel like they want to be an unlikely reunion? And here we are with, man, Slammiversary on the horizon. This feels like a very big deal. And we have a week. This felt like it could be a go-home show. And I think a lot of times we look at, compare WWE, AEW, it feels like they jam a lot of build into that last go-home show and put an emphasis. It's almost like Impact doesn't even need it. And we're sitting here with a well-built card that's just only going to get better with one more week of TV and build the excitement coming forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good go home show. This could have been a go home show on its own, but I think that they left enough room to do some more development next week, and I'm really looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a good one.
So before moving to Impactful Moment, we have J-Bone in here asking a question here. Do you guys think they jumped off of Steve Maclin too soon? So, Colton, I'll let you lead the way. I have my opinion on it. We've talked about it a little bit on here, but Steve Maclin did lose pretty quickly. The Alex Shelley win was shocking. This is one of the results. We weren't doing the show yet, but remember us texting back and forth. I could not believe Alex Shelley went over. But what are your thoughts on how Steve Maclin was perceived after losing?
I don't think that they jumped off of him too soon. I can definitely see where I definitely see the credence in that argument for sure. Steve Maclin, I think, he's gonna. It's no secret. I think he's definitely going to have that title again, and he'll certainly have a longer run. But I didn't expect him to necessarily to be a transitionary champion, but I love seeing it go on Alex Shelley. And, when was the last time that we saw a world title change hand in any promotion where it was a jaw drop, a surprise? And it was really nice and refreshing to get that. I mean, hard to say, man. I think the shot is kind of, with Nick Aldis being the big signing coming back to Impact, I think it's a long shot that we get that Alex Shelley keeps it at Slammiversary. So I'm, just for the sheer fact that we got to see Alex Shelley hold the world title is enough justification for me that they didn't take it off Maclin too soon. If this was WWE, most definitely, because WWE wouldn't be doing what they're doing with Maclin, where they're pairing him, like we said earlier, pairing him with somebody like Bully Ray, who's a 30+ year veteran, setting him up for, taking him down a darker road and continuing to develop him as a heel without the belt instead of just throwing him on the shelf and forgetting about him for a few months.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had my reservation when they first took the title off him because of that exact reason, as you mentioned, where it felt like they put so much steam behind him, building him up. And he was the byproduct of this unfortunate Josh Alexander injury where we had that historic title reign that he had. Steve Maclin kind of rose from that situation. But I agree with the way Maclin's being perceived now as a second main event with this program with Scott D'Amore and PCO and Bully Ray involved. It feels like a main program where there's a lot of emphasis on him. Now, the other thing is, as well, with Shelley winning the title, you mentioned before that you feel like Aldis is a preconceived notion he's going to win the title. And I think it would be more predictable to me if Maclin was going in as champion where Aldis would have walked out with the title. Now that Shelley just won the championship, are they really going to sit here and do another championship reign that's shorter and give it to Aldis? Now I'm sitting here not sure what they're going to do. Maybe they make Aldis chase for a bit as a heel. Who knows? I think it makes things more interesting. And Alex Shelley getting his first reign as Impact champion is a big deal. And we get this subplot of the Motor City Machine Guns both being champions at the same time. So that's really the good consequence of Josh Alexander being hurt and not having this championship. Because I think if he's still around, he'd still be champion right now, probably defending at Slammiversary. And we'd have a conclusion with him and Nick Aldis potentially. But we don't know what the plans were. We can't open up the books to see what they were doing. But I think silver lining of Alexander getting hurt is creating a new star, Maclin. Shelley gets his moment of shine. We get this Motor City Machine Gun stuff. Man, there's a lot of good stuff that came out of it, but has me thinking about Josh Alexander. Can't wait till he comes back because he's the uncrowned champion. He's a guy who never lost it. He, in my opinion, is one of the best Impact World Champions that in their history. And he is one of those guys too, comparing him to Roman Reigns. At that time, he was the most prominent world champion prior to Roman kind of breaking through that record and busting through everybody else. But compare him to, on the AEW side, I felt like Josh Alexander was on par, took that Impact Championship to another level. So, man, they're thriving as far as Impact goes. Talk about the roster. Their main event is just an embarrassment of riches at this point.
Yeah, and thriving in a situation that would, put other promotions in a tight spot when your Josh Alexander goes down. So yeah, I love that we're guessing. Like, we don't know. It's hard, like you said, you bring up a good point. It could go either way, man. And I like not knowing going into a pay-per-view. I'm not gonna bet either way because there's no way to be sure. So I'm real happy with where the title picture is in Impact right now. Much happier than I thought I would be after, when we heard about Josh Alexander's injury.
100%. The best thing is when he's going to have that triumphant return, similar to 2002, where we got the return of Triple H, and he's going to be coming for that championship, no matter if it's Aldis or Shelley or someone else's champion. But with that being said, let's get into our impactful moment. We'll pick our moment of the week.
Impactful.
All right, so believe it or not, an hour and 10 has flown by talking about Impact Wrestling with you, Colton. But what was your match of the week, segment of the week? What did you walk away from this episode of Impact feeling the best about?
Segment of the week for me was hands down the dissemination of PCO at the hands of Steve Maclin and Bully Ray, man. Pouring battery acid down his throat, lighting him on fire. I mean, that is pro wrestling, man. It is that kind of shit is what really that kind of stuff is what made me fall in love with this business as a kid. You're not seeing anything like that being done anywhere else other than Impact. I thought it was a perfectly executed segment. And like I said, it leaves me with so many questions going into next week. Is PCO going to be able to get well enough to show back up for Slammiversary? Are we even going to have that question answered next week? Does Scott D'Amore have to get another partner going into this match? Just for a storyline that we thought was totally set and just needed to coast going into the pay-per-view. Now we have a whole nother chapter to fill out. And I love it.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we didn't even mention about PCO was some of the bumps that dude takes, hitting the moonsault. Like, his body there's no ability for anyone to believe that this guy should be able to hit a moonsault and take the bumps he can with the miles on his body, with the way he's constructed, moves around, like, looks like he's bow-legged at this point, but this dude goes out there and grinds and will give his all. I mean, his run as ROH world champion, people are not familiar with that. I know people kind of look at the Sinclair era of ROH as one of those things that's a dark cloud on it, but part of it was his time as ROH champion. He was 10 years younger at this point, or maybe 8 years younger, something like that, moving around a lot better. But dude, bumping, having some of the best matches you'll see from a guy his age. So I agree with you. That segment was awesome. I'm going to go with the main event. I thought it fed both masters. It got Leo Rush to feel important. It built up towards Shelley and Aldis even better, and has me looking forward to the top of the card. But man, this Slammiversary card is well-rounded. It feels important. Everything is built. If you look at that card that we just ran down during the Insight segment, every match has heat on it. Really does. And they're still continuing to build on it. We're going to potentially get the Rascals added to that tag team match, potentially making a 5-way. Every single match has a lot to be at stake. And like, even the match with the Ultimate X with Bailey, Gresham, Angels, Kevin Knight, and Kushida, that match was just announced, 1 week ago? And it feels like it doesn't really even need that build, but they're still even going the extra length to have John Gresham and Angels. They're going to have Kevin Knight wrestle Mike Bailey and make it feel like there's been some build. They don't even need to do that, but they do it anyway because they're Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's not a let me up match anywhere on this card. I don't know when I'm going to go to the fucking bathroom while watching Slammiversary, because I'm not going to want to miss a second of it.
So that's being said, let's get the final wrap up. Our shock and awe. We're going to preview next week, talk about what's going on in the tavern. Maybe we'll get an update from Colton's mullet and talk about the competition, everything going on in the tavern. And let's get into shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
All right, as we say goodbye here for Brace for Impact, let's preview the week ahead. So, Colton, give us what's going on your end, preview the debate, You can even hype up some shot nostalgia happening next week. We got some good stuff on the docket.
Yeah, man. So tomorrow on YouTube, you'll be getting the first episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from Shot of Nostalgia Season 4. Me, Ace, and Mike Belcaster going through the first 2 months of 1994 Smoky Mountain Wrestling, January and February. Some really good shit in there, man. Some wrestling the way it used to be and the way that you like it. Great programs between... we got some early stuff work from Chris Candido, and we've got Dirty White Boy versus Brian Lee. Just all kinds of good stuff in there, man. I had an absolute blast with you guys. I'm looking for, this is going to be a short season, but I'm excited to really continue to dive in. Debate this week. It's the two bad Chads, Tom and myself. So the four horsemen of the debate, if you will, going in, and we had a good time this week. I always love doing the debate show. So that's going to be hitting on YouTube on Sunday and then audio drop on Monday. So please be sure to check that out. And like always, man, the turnbuckletavern.com. We're on every platform you can think of: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pro Wrestling Tees. Go get yourself a t-shirt. And please like, subscribe, leave us a review. That shit goes a long way. Instagram is still continuing to get followers, man. I think last time I checked, we broke 9,800 followers. We are so close to 10,000. So keep the love coming, man. We really appreciate it. We love putting out free wrestling content for you guys 7 days a week. So yeah, just keep joining the fun.
Absolutely. And just to echo your statements about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I had a great time talking about it. I'm looking forward to the season. I did the prep work for the second episode for April and May, or no, March and April, I should say, building into what is going to be an amazing year. July, of course, we're going to get the gangsters coming into Smoky Mountain Wrestling and doing their thing. We're going to get the debut of Chris Jericho and Lance Storm. But we also have, man, the WWF talent sharing. We were mentioning before with open door policy and having WWF working collaboratively eventually with AEW and Impact, New Japan Pro Wrestling eventually. This precedent set where Smoky Mountain Wrestling, of course, they weren't a threat to ever take over. They were this mom and pop shop that eventually ends their stuff because Vince finally takes a look at the aesthetic of Smoky Mountain and it's like, what are we even doing associated with them in a Knoxville, Tennessee gym? But we're going to see some talent that we're not used to seeing. We're going to get 1-2-3 Kid. We're going to get Lex Luger, IRS, that will all be involved in Smoky Mountain shows. And not to mention, too, as I mentioned before, on the WrestleMania 10 build in 1994, we get Smoky Mountain stuff being built on Raws leading up to WrestleMania 10. Tracy Smothers is on, wrestling as enhancement talent. So it's all good stuff building towards and interesting content, and we're building a lot of stuff. We go 2 hours strong, and it's jam-packed. You're not going to want to miss a moment of, so make sure you guys tune in 7 p.m. tomorrow and check it out. As far as on my end as well, Wrestling Tonight, Monday, 7 p.m., talking all the things news in wrestling. Tuesday audio drop, so if you guys are consuming that audio form, will be first thing in the morning on your drive to work. And just announced for the Tavern, we'll be having the giant Paul Loria coming on to visit the Tavern, former ECW talent, HWA talent. Spent some early, we talked about him during Shot Nostalgia. During 1995, he had a good program with Mikey Whipwreck. Some good stuff to talk about. He has, some wrestling stuff that he's involved in now. We're going to, talk about his career, talk about all the stuff that's happening currently for him, and looking forward to that conversation that's going to be happening at the end of July. So the stream is set. You guys can get the date on there. It's on my Instagram as well. So shout out to Paul Laurie. I can't wait to have a conversation with them. But as Colton mentioned, a lot of good stuff happening here on the Tavern. Make sure you guys tune into everything going on. We had the Raw Down Boys leading us in, checking out, all the stuff that happened at Money in the Bank, leading us through on the way to SummerSlam. So I can't wait to check that out. You and I were consuming all the Impact stuff, but I always like to end my night listening to the Raw Down Boys breakdown of WWE because they did such a good job always leading me in the Money in the Bank. If I ever miss anything happen on Raw or SmackDown, I know they can catch me up. So make sure you guys check out the audio. If they, you can't watch it on video, check it out tomorrow. Check it. They do such a good job doing it. So, but the whole Tavern is crushing it right now. So, Colton, last thing I want to ask is about the Kentucky Waterfall. Any updates for the folks here?
No updates yet, man. Like I said, my hairstylist is still on maternity leave, so I've probably got one, maybe two more touch-ups in me before we get in the competition photos in. My registration is not till August, but yeah, late July, early August. Be on the lookout for some new photos. We'll be spamming your feeds with as much Mullet Mania content as you can handle.
So we'll be back next week talking all things Impact Wrestling. On the build and the final show before Slammiversary. The show's going to look a little bit different next week, spending a lot of time talking about Slammiversary and building up the picks and talking about and hyping up the show. So guys, stay tuned for that. You're not going to miss it. And we appreciate the support as always. We'll catch you guys next week, next time.